Do you think that people, because I have a perception of people who write on television that they're all rich. Do you think that's accurate?
No. So one of the big things that we're dealing with now, so this is very like insider baseball-y, but the drama that's been happening with the WGA and our agents, where we fired our agents over a slew of issues. But one of the problems that the WGA has is that writers' salaries have stayed stagnant even with inflation. So middle class writers in particular are doing worse than they were 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
And so you're still making good money, but I was talking to this guy who was a showrunner on a show I was on, and like an old school dude, and he said that, you know, it was like an established thing where if you had been a TV writer and you got to a story editor level, like you bought a house. Like you were able to, you would, because of the way the industry worked and the schedule of things and the amount of money you were making, it was like by the time you hit that level, you'd made enough money to buy a house. And like being right now, I'm a level above that level. It's like I absolutely cannot buy a house off of what I make as an executive story editor on the show.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, the other thing is we all live in Los Angeles also.
Right.
So if we were living somewhere else, we would be rich. But here it goes quick.
It does go quick. And I feel like often a lot of the kind of, and I hate this word, frankly, but the empowerment, quote unquote, conversations tend to center around a few specific people who make, you know, and it's very similar to like the argument of, you know, for example, when you're measuring how feminist a company might be by like how many female board members they'll have,
right?
Not taking into account like what is their maternity leave or like, you know, what's the overall representation or compensation of women. And so I feel like similarly when we have these conversations about like empowerment and advocating yourself, it tends to focus on a few people who have an enormous amount of leverage or make a ton of money. And we'll talk about like, who's the woman on Grey's Anatomy?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking about Ellen Pompeo.
And by the way, respect to her for being like, actually, this is not that impressive.
Right.
You know, how have you found ways to advocate for yourself, or maybe even people that you work with and also want to advocate for without having like the leverage of an Ellen Pompeo?
So one of the nice things for me is I have a manager and a lawyer. And I have a lawyer who is like a complete rock star. Like
this is your lawyer.
My lawyer who is and I don't say this to be like self-deprecating, is like better than I deserve at the moment. Like this is very much like she signed me off of like the potential for me to make her a lot of money.
Wow.
Because considering the caliber of other clients that she has, it's like I am so far behind them. And her, you know, when I was meeting with her, she talked specifically about making sure that I was getting the money that I deserved. And that's one of the reasons why I went with her. When I met with my managers for the first time before I decided to hire them, I remember he said to me, you know, we want you to be able to follow your creative journey and get all the things you want, but we're also here to make you money. And I was like, thank God, because, you know, I was like, yes, me too, same. So I don't negotiate my salary for myself anymore. They take care of it. And I, you know, if they bring me a number and I'm not happy with it, I could certainly ask them to push back. But, you know, often my lawyer's like, I think this is as high as they're going to go, or she'll tell me where we started and where she got me up. Like on a recent deal, she got me up quite a bit. And so she'll always be like, this is a great starting offer. This is what I'm going to counter with, and let's see. So it's nice now that I don't have to do that. I think the ways now that I sort of empower myself is choosing when to say yes or no to things. So I had an offer to write on a show this summer, and they do these things called mini rooms now, which are kind of exploit writers, which is a whole other situation, but they're shorter and they're for less money. And I said no, because it wasn't worth my time. So I feel like now, in terms of me personally, that's how I've been advocating for myself, is choosing when to say yes or no to things based off of them making sense for me and like how much time I have to put into it and how much I'm going to make from it.
Did you ever used to negotiate your salary yourself?
I did. So right out of college, I worked at a PR firm in New York. And that was like, I remember I tried to get it came in, it was like, no, it was like, you know, $30,000 or something.
Right.
And I might have gotten up like $2,000, but it was clearly like, it was such an entry level position, and like that was it.
And this was back in New York.
This is back in New York, yeah. So I got them up a little bit, and then I started at Jezebel. I think I just like took whatever was first offered to me, honestly. And then I did at some point, I don't remember how far, and maybe a couple years in, I did ask for a raise and I got a title bump. And then since then I've done, I've been offered like speaking engagements. Now I have a speaking agent, but when I've sometimes been approached about things that aren't really things that my manager would deal with. And so I will negotiate, that myself. But honestly, I often like have a friend who I text and I'm like, this is what they're offering me. Like there were like podcast projects, and she works in that. She does a lot more work in the podcast arena than I do. And so I'll text her and say, this is what I'm being offered. And she's like, well, is it a corporate sponsored thing? You should ask for double or whatever it is. So I've done it a little bit. Now I do it like here and there.